I never imagined my wedding day would end with me hiding in a hotel hallway, mascara streaming down my face, listening to my mother-in-law plot my destruction. But there I was, my $3,000 white dress bunched around my knees as I crouched behind a potted plant, recording every word of Diana Wilson's phone conversation. "It's done," she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "I did exactly what you asked. Announced it right after their first dance. You should have seen her face when I told everyone she was carrying another man's baby." A pause. Of course it caused a scene. Half the guests left. Her parents are mortified. And James, well, let's just say my son won't be staying married to that gold digger for long. My hands shook as I pressed the phone closer to my ear, desperately trying to hear the other side of the conversation. After what she'd just done to me in front of 200 guests, I needed to understand why. Just 40 minutes earlier, I'd been living a fairy tale. James and I had finished our first dance to Perfect by Ed Sheeran. My new husband had kissed me in front of everyone, and I'd never felt more loved. Then Diana had clinked her glass for a toast. I should have known something was wrong by her smile. In the 8 months since James and I had announced our engagement, I'd never seen Diana smile at me with anything but contempt. But this smile was different, predatory, triumphant. "I'd like to make a toast to the happy couple," she'd said, her voice carrying across the ballroom. "To my son James, who has always been too trusting for his own good. And to my new daughter-in-law, Kate, who managed to trap him so effectively." She'd pause, letting confused murmurs ripple through the crowd. Though I suppose I should actually be toasting Mark from the accounting department at Kate's office. After all, he's the real father of the baby she's carrying. The room had exploded into chaos. I wasn't pregnant, hadn't even slept with anyone but James in the 2 years we'd been together. And I'd never even met anyone named Mark. But the damage was done. James had stepped away from me, his face pale with shock. My parents had rushed forward, demanding explanations. And Diana had stood there, champagne glass raised, watching it all burn. Now, hiding in the hallway, I finally understood this wasn't just random cruelty. This was planned. Paid for. "The money better be in my account by morning," Diana continued on the phone. 20,000, just like we agreed. Another pause. "Don't worry about James. Once the marriage is annulled, everything will go back to normal. The company shares will stay in the family where they belong." Company shares? My mind raced. James had recently inherited 30% of his grandfather's technology company, making him the largest individual shareholder. He'd been talking about modernizing operations, taking the company in a new direction. "Trust me," Diana's voice dripped with honey-coated venom. "By this time tomorrow, Sarah Mitchell's daughter will be out of our lives for good, just like her mother should have been 20 years ago." Sarah Mitchell. My mother's name. The phone nearly slipped from my grasp. "Look, I need to get back inside," Diana said. "Make sure James doesn't do anything stupid like try to talk to her." "Yes, I'll call you once it's all finalized. Good night, Robert." Robert. My father-in-law's name was William. Who was Robert? I stay frozen behind the plant as Diana's heels clicked past me down the marble hallway. My mind was spinning, trying to piece together the fragments of a puzzle I hadn't even known existed. My mother. Something that happened 20 years ago. A mysterious Robert who paid my mother-in-law to destroy my wedding. With trembling fingers, I pulled up my mother's contact. But before I could press call, a text from James lit up my screen. "Where are you? We need to talk about what just happened. Please tell me it's not true." My heart cracked. The fact that he could even question my faithfulness after 2 years together hurt more than Diana's public humiliation. But now I knew there was more to this story. Much more. I stood up, smoothing my dress. I had a choice to make. I could go back into that reception hall, try to defend myself against an accusation that would always leave a shadow of doubt. Or I could find out the truth about why this was happening. Another text from James. "Kate, if you don't come talk to me right now, I'll take that as admission of guilt." I took a deep breath and made my decision. I typed back, "Your mother just took a phone call in the hallway. She was paid $20,000 to do this to me. It has something to do with my mom from 20 years ago. If you want the truth, meet me at Cafe Luna tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bring your mother, and ask her who Robert is." I turned off my phone before he could respond. Then I walked through the hotel lobby, past the whispers and stares of lingering wedding guests, and out into the cool night air. My wedding reception was still in full swing behind me, but I had work to do. It was time to find out what happened 20 years ago between my mother-in-law, and the mysterious Robert, because something told me that tonight's destruction of my wedding was just the beginning of a much bigger story. As I slid into my car, still in my wedding dress, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. Mascara-stained cheeks, red eyes, ruined makeup. But also something else. Determination. Deanna Wilson thought she destroyed me tonight. Instead, she'd just given me the first clue to a 20-year-old secret. And I was going to uncover every last bit of it. The night after my ruined wedding was the longest of my life. Instead of spending it in the honeymoon suite with James, I sat at my childhood bedroom desk, surrounded by old photo albums and my laptop, searching for answers. My mother's reaction to my midnight phone call hadn't been what I expected. When I mentioned Robert and what had happened at the wedding, she'd gone completely silent. Then, in a voice I barely recognized, she said, "I'll be home tomorrow morning. Don't meet with Diana until I get there." She hung up before I could ask any questions. Now, at 9:30 a.m., I watched from my window as my mother's car pulled into the driveway. She looked different somehow, older, more worn than when she left my wedding reception in chaos just 12 hours earlier. In her hands was a weathered leather briefcase I'd never seen before. "I hoped this day would never come," she said as she walked into my room. No hello, no questions about how I was holding up. Just resignation in her voice as she placed the briefcase on my bed. "Mom, what's going on? How do you know Robert? And why did Diana Wilson," my mother's voice hardened on the name, "has been waiting 20 years to get revenge. I just never thought she'd use your wedding to do it." She opened the briefcase and pulled out a stack of yellowed newspapers. The top one was dated August 15, 2003. The headline made my blood run cold. "Tech startup CEO dies in suspicious car accident." "Robert Mitchell," my mother said, pointing to the grainy photo of a handsome man in his 30s. "Your father's brother, and the original founder of Mitchell Wilson Technologies." I stared at the photo, trying to process what she was saying. "But, Dad's an only child. That's what we wanted everyone to believe." She sank onto my bed, suddenly looking every bit her 55 years. "Robert was brilliant. He started the company in his garage, built it from nothing. Your father and William Wilson were his best friends from college. They owned small shares, but Robert was the genius behind everything." My head was spinning. William Wilson, James's father. She nodded. And Diana was Robert's fiancée. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. What? Until she left him for William 3 months before the wedding. Robert was devastated, but he threw himself into his work. The company was about to go public, worth millions. She took a shaky breath. "That's when I started working there as his assistant. I could see where this was going. You and Robert fell in love," she finished softly. "It was fast and intense. Diana was furious when she found out. She thought she could keep both men, William's money and Robert's devotion. When Robert announced our engagement 6 months later." "What happened to him?" I whispered, though I was already starting to piece it together. "The night before we were supposed to announce a major technological breakthrough, his car went off Mountain View Road. The police called it an accident, but Robert had left me a voicemail that night. He said he had proof that William and Diana had been stealing company secrets and selling them to competitors. He was going to expose everything at the board meeting the next day." She pulled out another paper. "Wilson takes control of Mitchell Tech." The date was 2 weeks after the accident. They buried the breakthrough, claimed Robert had been mentally unstable. William took control of the company, and Diana made sure everyone knew I was just a gold-digging secretary who'd seduced her way to the top. I was fired, blacklisted. Your father, Robert's brother, helped me disappear, gave me his last name to protect me. We moved away and started over. I thought that chapter was closed until you met James at that tech conference last year." My phone buzzed. A text from James. "I'm at Cafe Luna. Mom refuses to come, says she doesn't know any Robert. Please, Kate, talk to me." I showed my mother the message. "James doesn't know any of this. Does he?" She shook her head. "How could he? He was only 5 when it happened." Diana and William rewrote history. Mitchell Wilson Technologies became just Wilson Technologies. Robert became a footnote, a cautionary tale about reckless driving. But why destroy my wedding? After all these years? Because 6 months ago, Robert's old attorney contacted me. There was a safety deposit box set to open 20 years after his death. Inside was proof, everything he discovered about William and Diana's corporate espionage. The attorney is preparing a case that could strip them of everything. And somehow Diana found out, I realized. That's why she couldn't let James marry me. Once we were married, his shares would be partially mine in case of divorce. And if the company falls, you'd have a claim to a significant portion. My mother's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I should have told you the truth when you first started dating James. I wanted you to have a chance at happiness without the weight of the past. My phone buzzed again. James, if you don't show up, I'll believe what my mother said about you. Please, I love you. I looked at the time, 9:55 a.m. In 5 minutes, I was supposed to meet the man I married yesterday, the man I loved, whose family had possibly murdered my uncle and destroyed my mother's life. What are you going to do? My mother asked softly. I picked up the newspaper with Robert's photo, my uncle, the man whose death had shaped my entire life without me knowing it. I thought about Diana's phone call, her cold calculation in destroying what should have been the happiest day of my life. I'm going to meet James, I said, standing up. And I'm going to show him exactly who his mother is. My mother grabbed my arm. Kate, be careful. These people, they've already killed once to protect their secrets. I picked up my phone and opened the recording app, playing Diana's conversation from last night. Her voice filled the room. 20,000, just like we agreed. Sarah Mitchell's daughter will be out of our lives for good. Don't worry, Mom, I said, stopping the recording. This time, we have proof. And I'm going to make sure everyone hears it. As I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, my mother called out, What makes you think James will believe you over his own mother? I turned back, thinking of the kind, honest man I've fallen in love with, the man who valued truth and justice above everything. Because, I said softly, he's exactly like his Uncle Robert. And Diana's worst nightmare is about to come true, another Mitchell man choosing love over loyalty to her. I walked out into the morning sun, heading toward a conversation that would either save my marriage or blow apart two families' decades of secrets. Either way, Diana Wilson was about to learn that she'd made a terrible mistake. She should have checked that hallway for witnesses before making her phone call. The bell above Cafe Luna's door chimed as I walked in at exactly 10 a.m. James sat at our usual corner table, the same one where he proposed 8 months ago. He looked like he hadn't slept, still wearing his wrinkled wedding suit from yesterday. When he saw me, his face crumpled with a mixture of relief and pain. Kate, he started, standing up. Please tell me my mother was lying. Tell me there's no. I held up my hand, silencing him. Before we talk, there's something you need to hear. I placed my phone on the table and played Diana's recorded conversation from last night. James sank back into his chair as his mother's voice filled the space between us, confessing to being paid to destroy our wedding. When it got to the part about Sarah Mitchell, his face went pale. Who's Robert? He whispered after the recording ended. And what does your mother have to do with any of this? I pulled out the old newspaper article and slid it across the table. James stared at his uncle's photo, his hands trembling slightly. I don't understand. This was Dad's company before. Before your father and mother stole it, I finished quietly. Robert Mitchell was my Uncle James, and there's evidence suggesting your parents were responsible for his death. The next 15 minutes felt like hours as I explained everything. Robert's relationship with Diana, the corporate espionage, my mother's story, and the recently discovered safety deposit box. With each revelation, James seemed to shrink further into himself. All these years, he said finally, his voice hollow. The company my father built, it was all a lie. Your father didn't build anything. He stole it. And your mother paid someone to destroy our wedding to keep the truth buried. James ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. God, Kate, I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you yesterday. Should have known you'd never. The cafe door chimed again. We both looked up to see Diana Wilson striding toward us, her face twisted with fury. James, get away from her, Diana commanded. This woman and her family are trying to destroy everything we've built, just like her mother tried 20 years ago. No, Mother, James said, standing slowly. You destroyed everything the moment you took that money to ruin my wedding. Diana's face went white. What are you talking about? James played the recording again. This time, I watched Diana's expression change from shock to fear to calculated determination. "That proves nothing," she said when it finished. "It's obviously doctored." "James, darling, you can't possibly believe." "Stop lying, Mom." James's voice cracked. "Just stop. Did you and Dad kill Uncle Robert?" The cafe had gone silent, other customers openly staring as our drama unfolded. Diana glanced around nervously before leaning in close. "Everything we did was to protect this family," she hissed. "Robert was going to ruin us all with his self-righteous crusade. We built that company into what it is today. He was just a dreamer with some lucky ideas." "He was my uncle," I said, standing up beside James. "And you murdered him to steal his company." Diana laughed, but there was hysteria edging into her voice. "Prove it. You have nothing but an old woman's bitter memories and a recording that won't hold up in court." "Actually," James said quietly, "we have everything from Robert's safety deposit box. And as the majority shareholder of Wilson Technologies, I've already called an emergency board meeting for this afternoon." He took my hand, squeezing it gently. "It's over, Mom. The truth is coming out." Diana's face contorted. "You would choose her over your own family?" "I'm choosing truth over lies, justice over theft." James pulled me closer, "and love over manipulation." As if on cue, two men in suits entered the cafe, heading straight for our table. "Diana Wilson," one asked, showing a badge. "We'd like you to come with us to answer some questions about the death of Robert Mitchell." I watched them lead Diana away, her perfectly maintained facade finally crumbling as she realized her 20-year-old secrets were about to come to light. James turned to me, his eyes full of determination and regret. "Can you ever forgive me for doubting you?" I touched his cheek gently. "Can you forgive me for keeping my family's past a secret?" He smiled sadly. "Looks like we both have some healing to do." "Then let's do it together," I said, taking his hand as we walked out of the cafe. After all, that's what we promised yesterday, for better or worse. 20 years of lies had ended where they began, with a Mitchell and a Wilson choosing love over deception. This time, though, the truth had won.